my name is Charlotte, and I'm 26 years old. I work at a printing company. I joined this company a year ago, and I'm finally getting used to the job. I switched jobs because I wanted to advance my career, but the department manager and my colleagues are so kind and reliable that I feel fortunate to have found this company. However, now that a year has passed since I joined, I'm starting to regret changing jobs. The current CEO of the company rose to the top management position at the young age of 45 and is known in the public as a handsome and capable CEO. He has been interviewed by the media several times, and there have even been women who came to interviews just to meet him. Olivia, the 32-year-old section manager, idolizes the president and often says she would do anything for him. She is beautiful, and it seemed like the CEO had taken an interest in her since she joined the company, but her fanatical devotion feels too extreme, and I've been feeling uneasy about her attitude. During an internal party held after joining the company, I caught the eye of the section manager, who was obsessed with the CEO. At a welcome party within the company, I was asked quite personal questions and touched by the tipsy president. This behavior irked the section manager. I had imagined that someone described as a handsome and capable CEO would also be a good person, but in reality, when I spoke to him, I found that he was overbearing and lacked tact. It was quite uncomfortable to be familiarly approached by such a CEO, but since it was a fun internal party, I endured it. The section manager misunderstood the situation, assuming that I was somehow showing interest in the CEO, and began to resent me, thinking that I was trying to win favor with the CEO. It was a complete misunderstanding, but the section manager started loudly denouncing me whenever we crossed paths, calling me a flirt who tried to seduce the CEO. My colleagues understood that it was the section manager's misconception, but being publicly embarrassed like that was incredibly painful and distressing for me. The section manager's harassment escalated day by day because there was a specific reason behind the section manager's persistent bullying towards me at that time, a reason I was unaware of. The section manager would often make unreasonable demands of me. Just before the end of the workday, he would delegate tasks to me, saying they needed to be done by the end of the day, then quickly leave for a date. I would end up working late into the night to finish these tasks, but the next day, there was never a word of thanks from the section manager. Furthermore, he would push his difficult clients onto me without any proper handover and pressure me to ensure there were no issues. When complaints arose, the section manager would ignore his responsibility for the assignment and emotionally reprimand me. At that time, thanks to the support of colleagues and the manager, the situation was resolved without incident, but I was left dumbfounded by the section manager's reckless behavior. Feeling at a loss due to the section manager's extreme and irresponsible conduct, I consulted with the manager, who warned the section manager several times on my behalf. In front of the manager, the section manager would act innocent and back down, but her attitude towards me never changed. Seeing how distressed I was, the manager suggested that I directly discuss the issue with the CEO. I thought that if the company's top executive addressed the matter, even the section manager would comply, but this turned out to be completely off the mark. When I reported to the president together with the department manager, the CEO interrupted me before I could finish speaking and said,
"Based on what I heard from the section manager, it seems like you're at fault, doesn't it?"
He began to place the blame on me. Despite my earnest protests, he wouldn't listen and seemed to be completely swayed by the section manager, siding with him at every turn. Then, out of the blue, the CEO remarked,
"Well, Olivia, the section manager, is more attractive than."
In summary of his remarks, it seemed that he was more inclined to believe the words of the attractive section manager over mine. Hearing those words, I realized that there was no point in saying anything to this person. They were beyond reasoning as human beings. Even the department manager, who was present, was visibly astonished by his statements. With his behavior in this manner, the harassment from the section manager towards me only worsened. Thanks to the support of the department manager and colleagues, I managed to maintain some semblance of sanity, but the situation was still dire. One day, as I contemplated leaving the company, the section manager instructed me to go on a business trip. When I heard the details of the assignment, it seemed like it didn't necessarily have to be me, but the section manager insisted that he wanted me to go. I didn't want to refuse and face his anger, so I obediently agreed to go on the 2-night, 3-day business trip as the section manager requested. At that time, I didn't question it and simply followed the section manager's instructions, falling right into his trap. Little did I know that this would lead to a major incident that would shake the company. After completing the trip, I returned to the office as usual. In the morning, I happened to run into the department manager.
It's unusual for you to take 3 days off.
He seemed concerned about my well-being, wondering if I was feeling okay. I was puzzled by his remarks but honestly explained. I was on a business trip per the section manager's orders. He responded with surprise and fell silent. Sensing something amiss in his reaction, I asked him for an explanation. The department manager awkwardly began to explain that he had heard that I was absent for these 3 days due to sudden illness, not a business trip. Moreover, he mentioned that he heard this from the section manager. During my business trip, it seems that the CEO suddenly proposed a company outing for the employees. They stayed overnight at a decent nearby inn and enjoyed a delicious meal with the section manager and other employees. The CEO often had impromptu ideas for employee gatherings or recreational activities. While I always found it bothersome, being in my first year at the company made it difficult to decline, so I tended to participate in these events, even if they were somewhat unreasonable. I wonder if it was just a coincidence that my business trip coincided with the scheduled company outing. As I was lost in thought, the department manager suggested that we go directly to the section manager to hear the explanation firsthand. When we arrived and asked the section manager about it, they calmly began to explain their reasoning without any signs of panic. The section manager had heard about the company outing from the CEO beforehand but felt that they couldn't let me accompany them due to concerns that I might use this as an opportunity to seduce the CEO. So, they admitted that they forcibly sent me on a business trip. She expressed irrational statements, suggesting that staying overnight with the CEO might lead to some kind of mistake due to my potential seduction. They claimed that they were acting in the best interest of protecting the president, which filled me with fear upon hearing it. Their thought process was abnormal. Regardless, the section manager, astonished by her remarks, said,
I think it's best to bring this to the CEO's attention.
I agreed, but I couldn't imagine the CEO doing anything about it. Just then, the CEO arrived at the office. The manager immediately approached him and reported the situation regarding the business trip. Predictably, he responded nonchalantly, saying,
Seriously? Olivia is just too into me? Huh?
He showed no sign of taking our concerns seriously. The section manager smirked and glanced sideways at me, as if to say, See? He is on my side. Seeing this exchange between the CEO and the section manager, I couldn't tolerate it any longer. It seemed like these two needed to be dealt with. I decided to unleash all the anger I had been holding back without reservation. Well, if you don't like me that much, then fine. I quit this company. As soon as I declared this, her face lit up with a smile, as if they had been eagerly anticipating this moment. The CEO looked surprised but seemed uninterested in stopping me, shrugging and saying,
If that's your decision, Then go ahead.
I was deeply infuriated by his condescending attitude towards him. The manager, who had been listening nearby, hurried to placate me, but my resolve was unwavering. However, before I quit the company, there was something I had to do. Excuse me for a moment. With that, I held up approximately a year's worth of payroll statements issued by the company in front of the CEO's eyes. As soon as he realized they were payroll statements, their smile disappeared and their brow furrowed. Noticing this reaction, I pointed to the deductions section of the payroll statement. There were several entries listed there for fees like facility usage, environmental improvement costs, and other items that seemed both meaningless and incomprehensible in terms of their purpose and actual implementation. Every month, these obscure expenses were being deducted from my salary, amounting to nearly $200. When I asked the accounting staff about it, they simply said it was his directive and refused to discuss it further. A few months ago, I finally mustered the courage to ask him directly about it. He stubbornly replied,
"It's an obligation of the employees,"
dismissing me without further explanation. I had been suspicious about this for a long time. The manager tilted his head while looking at my payroll statement.
What is this? I don't see these items on my statement,
he said, puzzled. As it turns out, after conducting my research within the company, I discovered that these deductions were only applied to new employees like myself who had been with the company for about 1 to 2 years. Everyone else, all recent graduates, assumed this was just the company's rule and didn't question the deductions being made from their salaries every month. Isn't this a violation of labor standards laws? I stated firmly, causing the CEO to fall silent. Glancing briefly at the section manager, I noticed she also seemed to be aware of this deduction, as her eyes darted around unusually. I continued to address the visibly shaken CEO. Having suspected illegal deductions from my salary, I took my employment contract, company regulations, and other evidence to the Labor Standards Inspection Office to file a complaint about the illegality. By this point in the conversation, he seemed to finally grasp the seriousness of the situation. With my report, an inspector from the Labor Standards Inspection Office will likely be dispatched soon. If the investigation confirms the violation, it could lead to serious criminal penalties. The manager, who had been listening to the conversation, confronted the CEO.
Why did you do something like this?
The CEO fell silent and did not attempt to explain the reasons, but it appears that he wanted to attract talent by promoting the company as a white company with high salaries. However, in reality, he was illegally deducting salaries and scheming to reduce labor costs. Targeting new employees in vulnerable positions to deceive them out of money is simply too malicious. The manager's face turned pale as he exclaimed,
This is serious, sir. Do you understand the gravity of what you've done?
The CEO forced a smile and muttered something incoherent. Just when it seemed like the tables were turning, the section chief interjected to defend him.
Hey. What's your intention in opposing the CEO?
The section manager glared at me fiercely, as if about to pounce, and shouted. Anticipating this turn of events, I decided to provoke her. You always seem to lose your cool when it comes to the president, huh? Upon hearing this, her anger intensified. Section manager, shut up. You're annoying. That's when I decided to expose the reason for her intense reaction. You know, I'm aware that the CEO and the section manager are involved romantically, right? Given her prior actions and words that favored the president, it all makes sense if they're lovers. Seeing me being overly familiar with the CEO at the company party, the section manager, consumed by jealousy, began harassing me, Which makes sense. The section manager's intense jealousy likely led to my not wanting to go on the company trip. Exposing their relationship in front of other employees rattled the CEO considerably.
Hey, Olivia. That's irrelevant right now.
He said, trying to silence me. Ignoring him, I further provoked her. So, dating the CEO has made you arrogant? I heard you've been acting high and mighty with other employees, assigning unreasonable tasks. I remarked. I even casually revealed that the section manager had a fiancé but had an affair with the president during the engagement, leading to a breakup initiated by the other man. By the way, I got this information from a knowledgeable janitor who has worked at the company for years. It took a bit of digging to confirm. Watching the employees whispering from a distance, the section manager squirmed uncomfortably but quickly regained composure.
What's that supposed to mean? I'm marrying him. I had to break off my engagement and pay compensation, but I'll pay as much as needed to be with him.
Declared her, loudly proclaiming the relationship with the CEO. The CEO, who had fallen silent, looked even more pale than before. Taking over for him, I said, marriage? That might be a bit complicated. After all, he has a wife. The reality hit hard as I confronted her. He looked up to the sky, holding his head in his hands. The truth that he wanted to keep hidden had now reached her ears, leaving her in despair.
It's a lie. Because he's already separated from his wife.
The section manager turned weakly and slowly toward the CEO. Growing impatient with the still stuttering him, I added a final blow to her. Surely not. He hasn't separated from his wife, you know? It was widely believed within the company that the CEO was a divorced bachelor, but after discreet inquiries with a long-standing business associate of his, it was revealed that he was married. This associate often played golf and dined with him and his wife, so he knew her well and shared various details. He had strictly instructed her never to disclose their relationship, and she, who was devotedly aligned with the president, had quietly continued their affair, keeping it discreet to avoid detection. However, the CEO's secrecy likely stemmed from fear that news of his relationship would reach his wife. For the section manager, who broke off his engagement knowing he would face alimony claims in order to marry the CEO, there could be nothing more shocking. The CEO, repeating short phrases like,
well,
is trying desperately to explain himself. The section manager, who had been bowing her head since learning the CEO's secret, shook his clenched fist and said in a voice filled with resentment,
I won't forgive you.
She went berserk, hurling whatever was nearby at the CEO, creating a chaotic scene reminiscent of a drama. While other managers and employees desperately tried to restrain the section manager, I couldn't help but contain my laughter. Watching them shamelessly berate each other, I felt a slight sense of relief. This is my way of saying thanks for treating me like trash. We've reached the perfect end, even if we both went down together, I said, leaving them with a sense of regret and sadness mixed in their faces. Their hateful expressions marked the end of this spectacle. As for what happened to the CEO and the section manager afterward. Following that, an inspector from the Labor Standards Inspection Office visited the company and initiated an investigation. The investigation revealed illegal deductions, and the company received a recommendation for correction. Despite the straightforward solution, the CEO made various excuses and did not comply with the recommendation. Naturally, this led to his arrest and indictment, and the incident became widely known to the public. With things having reached this point, it may only be a matter of time before the company goes bankrupt. As a result of this incident, the director and many other talented employees also turned their backs on the CEO and left the company. However, the misfortune of the CEO did not end there. It seems that the enraged section manager ended up exposing the affair to his wife. As a result, they got divorced, and he lost everything. The section manager is said to be pursued for payment of damages by both the ex-fiancé and the CEO's ex-wife. Due to the entanglement of love and hatred, even after their breakup, she began to stalk the CEO, which eventually led to the president reporting him to the police. It's quite astonishing how things turned out this way, especially considering how much they once loved each other. Nevertheless, all of this is their own doing. It's a stark reminder of how troublesome romantic entanglements can be, right? As for me, I was able to receive a refund for the illegally deducted wages. I promptly changed jobs and now work for a company in the food and beverage industry. My new boss is quite demanding and has given me strict guidance several times, but compared to the harassment I endured from the section manager at my previous company, it's nothing. Thanks to the experiences with the CEO and the section manager, I've built up a resistance. In that regard, I should be thankful to them, right? I'm determined to keep working hard in my job going forward. Well then, everyone. Take care. How did you find this story? Don't forget to subscribe to the channel as well. See you in the next video.